Coming up on today's Locked On Senators, a trade deadline preview. We are 22 days away from March 3rd, but the Sens return to practice tonight at 6 and then play 11 games in 20 days leading up to the deadline.
We've got 5 possible players that the Sens could ship out at the deadline with some contentious discussion about the guy at number 1.
All that plus a giveaway for a Senators jersey. The draw will happen at the end of today's show. It's all brought to you by the FanDuel Sportsbook, the official sportsbook of Locked On. Make every moment more. Visit FanDuel.com/LockedOn to get started today. This is the Locked On Senators podcast. It's your team every day.
Your Locked On Senators, your daily podcast on the Ottawa Senators. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
I'm Jake Sanderson, and you're listening to Locked On Senators podcast.
I'm Tim Stützle, and you're listening to the Locked On Senators podcast.
Welcome inside episode 732 of the Locked On Senators podcast. I'm Ross Levitan on the outskirts of enemy territory in Winnipeg, Manitoba, alongside Brandon Piller up in the Blue Mountains, and we are on day 9 without Ottawa Senators hockey. I feel like I'm going mad, crazy, but this is going to be a great show with tons of topics to get into, and as Pilsy said, some contention as to whether or not the Senators should ship out their most valuable expiring asset.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see what the Ottawa Senators do, Ross, because for the first time in forever, it hasn't been obvious whether this team is an aggressive buyer or an aggressive seller. So are they going to buy? Are they going to sell? Are they going to stand pat? That remains to be seen.
I think where we can start is they're not buying. They can't. As much as Pierre Dorion has hinted in the media that he wants to, and I know that's where you're coming from there, he can't, right? Like, you can't go out and get an expiring deal. You can't give us another Hamonic debacle on the internet. I can't handle it.
Ross, I believe what you're trying to say is you shouldn't do that, because keep in mind, this is a Pierre Dorion that is very aware of the looming cloud of new ownership, and he might try to make a splash to say, hey, look, you need to keep me here. I've set this team up. I just acquired another piece for this group for next season. So yes, I believe they shouldn't go out and be buyers, but that doesn't necessarily mean that Pierre Dorion won't do that, Ross. I mean, we're talking about the man that has made, I'm pretty sure this is a fact, he's made the most trades in the NHL since he's been the general manager of the Ottawa Senators. If not the most, got to be top 5 for sure.
Yeah, I wish that the advanced analytics community could figure it out and get me some numbers on this, but going off eye test and feel test, the Senators are never afraid to make a big move or a million small moves as we've seen over the past number of deadlines. The funniest had to be where they brought in all these defensemen, and then they're like, you know what? We don't actually want them, so here, just take them all for 6th and 7th round picks. Just kind of admitting that there's no value to be had in any of them. I believe they were namely Coburn, Gabranson, and Josh Brown during that COVID season. But right now, they find themselves in a similar situation where the names that you probably want to move the most are on the back end, but none of them really bring a whole lot of value, I don't think, in terms of trades either.
Yeah, I think if teams are looking at the Ottawa Senators, apart from one guy at the top of the list, they're looking at extra pieces as injury insurance. Like, I think the Boston Bruins could take a look at a couple of the guys on the Senators strictly as backups, as reinforcements. Like, none of these guys would probably make the Bruins everyday roster, but if they get into injury trouble, you can have them on reserve, which is kind of sad to say that guys that the Ottawa Senators have playing on their everyday roster would simply be reserve players for most contending teams here.
Well, Josh Brown's the perfect example of that to Boston last year. He goes there and plays 6 games.
Yep.
Otherwise, he was just a man in a suit in the crowd. But like you said, we are hoping that the Senators can acquire some assets over the next little while. Remember, they're without their 3rd round pick in both this upcoming draft and the year after. And another reminder, that second round pick from the Connor Brown trade is a 2024 second round pick. So this upcoming draft, they have two seventh round picks rather. One was the Erica Branson trade from 2 years ago. And then other than that, they're just without their third round pick, and they've got everything else. Toronto owns their third round pick, thanks to Matt Murray being unavailable for the Sens, so they had to move on from him. All that to say, we do have a goalie on our list. Should we get to it, Pilsy? Or do you want to start at the bottom and kind of work our way up before we unveil the entirety of the list?
Let's work our way up, actually, because I mean the top choice is the juiciest discussion here.
Yes. So let's do number 5, Nick Holden. I don't know what kind of value you can get back from him. I think he was a fine soldier since coming over for the Evgeny Dadonov. We're both on the side and in agreement that it was a good thing to bring him back based on the pleasant surprise that he brought last year. Now, he's okay as a third pair defenseman. Like, I think him and Brandstrom have had some chemistry there on that third pair, but I also see him as a very movable piece. But for him, would you keep him if the offers are only like a 7th round pick, or do you think that roster spot is more valuable to give someone else an opportunity in the final stretch?
I'll go for the latter of those two. I think it makes more sense. Like, for me, Ross, I know we showed the wild card standings and we've got games in hand on the Islanders, but the dream of sneaking into that final wild card spot is slipping away with every Islanders win here. So for me, the main point of this season is beat the rivalry teams like we talked about, those Atlantic Division, the Buffaloes, the Detroits, the Floridas. Beat those teams when you got a chance. And of course, you want to beat the Leafs every time you play them. Try to be the 4th best team in the Atlantic Division. That's what you're trying to do in the standings. But I want to show me what you got out of a lot of players. So free up those roster players. Let me see more extended time of JBD, Lassie Thompson. Let me see more extended time of Ridley Gregg, Igor Sokolov in the NHL. Let's see what we got from these guys, because I think that's your most valuable thing right now, is assessing what you can kind of have from your prospects that are now supposed to be in the NHL. And so new ownership that comes in has a better idea of what they've got on the table here too. So I think Nick Holden has been great since he's been here. And Ross, maybe the Senators are put
great
for his role and what he's done.
Great.
I'm okay to say that he's been great for what he's been expected to do here. But maybe the Ottawa Senators are putting him on a top pair as like a showing the rest of the league, hey, this guy, he can be a top pairing defenseman. Obviously, I say that a bit in jest, but maybe they are trying to show him off a little bit more, because expiring deal, I don't think it makes sense to keep him. Like, you can get a guy like Nick Holden in free agency next year. I know a 6th or a 7th round pick isn't exactly appetizing, but it's something.
Let's jump ahead to the next defenseman on this list, because I want to ask you a question going into the break, and that's Nick Holden. Sure, I would take a 6th or a 7th for him. That's fine, because you're also trying to lure Tyler Kleven out of school. And if it takes a few NHL games to do that, you have to have a spot for him ready to go. Now, Travis Hamonic comes in at number 3 on our list, which makes me ask you the question. And we know there would have to be some retained salary if Travis Hamonic is to go, but you can never have too many defensemen going into playoffs. As Ottawa knows, guys get hurt early and often, it seems like that in the postseason. But going back to the youth movement, do you think there's a realistic chance that we could have Jacob Bernard-Docker and Tyler Kleven in an NHL lineup together this spring?
I mean, it's not crazy. Yeah, sure. Why not? And that's the thing. Let's see what we got from Kleven as well. Yeah, North Dakota Sens. Nodak Sens. Let's go. Yeah.
Dude, but 4 of them in the lineup, 3 on the back end. It could be like the COVID year all over again.
But dude, that was the dream. That's why Pierre Dorion went and put a lot of stock into North Dakota, and they got these 4 Nodak Sens. So that was the hope that all these guys could play on the same roster with the Ottawa Senators one day. So yeah, I'm down for that.
Yeah, that'd be cool. So I think going into the forwards on this list, it's going to get a bit more interesting. That's why I skipped ahead. What do you think the value is, though, for a guy like Travis Hamonic, if, let's say, it's a 50% retention, which means it's a $1.5 million cap hit?
I think it has to be a 50% retention. I don't think I don't think GMs are even picking up the phone if you're not retaining salary and 50% of it.
I mean, Gabranson was able to get moved at at a $4 million cap hit.
Yeah, but I mean, I would rather the Sens retain some salary and get more value in return rather than lose that value. I don't know what you could get for Hamonic retained salary, honestly. Like maybe you're looking at a fourth round pick at very best, a third round pick, depending on how teams feel about him. But honestly, it's Ross, it's not even so much about what the value is in return. It's just you gotta move these guys. Either you're moving them and getting a little in return, or you're letting them go for nothing in the offseason. I'll take a little.
I think people are going to crucify me, but I've said it before. I'll say it again. I wouldn't hate Travis Hamonic and a 1-by-1 contract next year being the number 6 defenseman. I know some people don't have any time for him. It's hard to argue with some of the results, some of the penalties that he's taken as well, but I think that he does bring a little extra juice in the back end. And if he's on, like, for what he's making now, it's clear that it's an overpayment and he's not the player he was in his prime with the Islanders or even with the Flames. But I wouldn't hate bringing him back on a 1-by-1. But again, that's something that you can revisit in the summer if and when he makes it to free agency. So I think you take the asset for him and you move along to moving more important pieces that we have. Number 4, 2 and 1, classic countdown, right? Coming up next on Locked On Senders. And then we're going to wrap up today's show with our Twitter giveaway. We got to 10,000 followers on Twitter. And that means that Pilsy and I are opening our wallets and getting one lucky listener a Senators jersey, customized whoever they want on the back. If you want to put Locked On Sens, hey, we're not going to stop you, but the draw will come up a little later on in today's Locked On Senators.
Today's episode is brought to you by our friends at FanDuel. Guys, we are so stoked that we have a new sports betting partner for the Locked On Podcast Network, because if you want to have any partnership, Ross, you want to partner with the best. And FanDuel is the number 1 sportsbook in North America. They are a partner of the NFL, and they have a lot of fun options for you on their app that's safe, secure, and easy to use. And for our friends down in the States, get started with $150 in free bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet. All you got to do, sign up at fanduel.com/lockedon. They got all your favorite bets, money line, point spreads, player props, and you can even combine your bets for a chance at a bigger payout with the same game parlays. I haven't had much luck with the parlays, but if you do same game, you can up those odds so you got a little more action and a little more enticement to make those parlays. And I cannot wait, Ross, for Sens hockey to get back here, because I'm itching to make some more money off Brady Tkachuk over 3.5 shots, as that's been a consistent one. And that's where I would go if you're starting any sort of same game parlay with the Sens. So guys, you can also bet on football. The Super Bowl is coming up this weekend. Don't miss out. Place your first bet, $5 to get $150 in free bets, win or lose, at fanduel.com/lockedon. Make every moment more with FanDuel, official sportsbook partner of the NFL.
Today's episode is also brought to you by the GLEBE Central Pub. I will be boots on the ground at the GLEBE Central Pub. So will Pilsy in 8 days' time. We cannot wait to welcome you to our favorite bar in Ottawa. You can find it in the heart of the Glebe at 779 Bank Street. It's great food, cold drinks, and an amazing atmosphere that's all about inclusivity, where they've got trivia night, where they've got open mic night, they've got comedy night. I saw that you can follow all the great initiatives that the Glebe Central Pub does on their Instagram, on their Twitter as well. Glebe Central Pub, just type it in and it'll show up right there. We're excited to do our first ever live show at the Glebe Central Pub. It's coming up on February 17th. If you don't have your tickets yet, they are selling out quick. There's still a limited number left. Go to GlebeCentralPub.com or head to Send Central on Twitter. We have a direct link pinned to our profile, GlebeCentralPub.com, their online store. You can get your boots on the bus to the Ottawa Senators against the Chicago Blackhawks. Of course, the tickets to the actual game are sold separately, but this will get you a shuttle to the rink, back to the Glebe Central Pub from the rink, and live show. The boys will be chatting it up at 4:45 Eastern time. We're looking forward to that. We can't wait to see you there. At Lalim's Martian will be with us as we get set to honor Chris Neal ahead of the Senators and Chicago Blackhawks. But it's always a good day to get down to Glebe Central Pub. So head there now, Glebe Central Pub, 779 Bank Street. And when you go, make sure you let them know that Locked On Senators sent you. All right, Pilsy. The countdown continues to number one. Who should the Senators move at the trade deadline? It's an interesting place to be this year because we know how valuable playoff spots are. And there's still some teams that think they're in the race that really aren't. The only problem is I think Pierre Dorion is one of those people. And I think he thinks, we got 4 games in hand, Pills. We've got games in hand. I think he's seeing that as a little bit of an opening. And I don't know how smart that is. And I am extremely nervous at the next move that he does. We know the update is early March. While you and I are on the beach, we're going to find out. Guaranteed, we're going to be away when the Senators sale goes through. The content is going to be outstanding for it. But I'm so curious to see early March. Pilsy, I need a math guy on my hands here, a scheduling guy. Is March 3rd early March? Is March 3rd early March?
Yeah, obviously.
Okay. Is the sale going to go before the trade deadline? And if so, what implications would that have on what the heck the Sens do?
No, I don't think it has implications. I don't think the implications of new ownership as far as roster evaluation and moving guys in and out will have any effect until the offseason.
Okay. You don't think a guy, because I'm sure come trade deadline, and let's say the 72 hours leading up to it, I'm pretty sure we're going to know we might know, but I think whoever's going to get the successful bid, I think they're going to know it. And that's where I'm curious if maybe they don't dabble too much, because again, I don't know where the sale would be, how much, like when the starting date was, the onboarding, all that sort of thing. But I do think that if an owner comes in and let's say they've been following along this season, if not longer, and they're like, hey, you cannot trade this guy, you cannot trade that guy, even if they're guys who maybe would be on the move or maybe would be available in a larger trade, I do think that an owner could come in and be like, yo, one, you might not be here in a week, so you're not making any big moves like that. I'm just so curious. We talked about it when they were losing too, and the lack of accountability it felt like. And then obviously the Troy Mann situation happens, which is far from over from what we've heard. And I think that when you're looking overall at this change in ownership, you don't think it's going to affect the trade deadline at all?
No, I think the owners are going to want it to, like, Ross, I honestly think ownership, the players that are on the ice are the least of their concern at that point. There's so much that goes into owning an NHL team that the actual roster, and with the Senators not being in a position to fully tank or fully contend for the playoffs, I think the on-ice product, like as in players, is going to be a very minimal concern for them. And that's something they're going to focus more on in the offseason. And that's something they're going to focus on hiring the right people to manage. Like, I don't think new ownership is going to be a hands-on type of ownership. That's what I'm saying. And especially not immediately.
Fair enough. No, I'm looking forward to finding out the direct answers to this when we finally get a sale go through and we can stop the speculation and actually get some answers here with what could be going on with the Senators front office, with what they're doing trade-wise. But we know they do have a ton of expiring contracts right now, and that's where we continue on our list. So we've got number 5, Nick Holden. Coming in at number 4 is Austin Watson. I think that teams value toughness going into a playoff, going into a long, grueling couple months where you're in and out of games each and every day. Well, Austin Watson's the kind of guy that can be in and out of lineups each and every day, and I don't think that's going to change the way that he can be effective in a game and have a strong forechecking shift or a momentum changing, not a fight, but a momentum changing hit, let's say, in a series. Do you think a 6th round pick is fair for him? I believe he was acquired for a 5th when Ottawa got him. That was as a 28-year-old. Now he's on the other side of 30. just like me.
Yeah. I mean, I'm clinging on to my 20s here, Ross. I turned 30 in a couple weeks here, so I'm still on the right side of that number. But for as far as Austin Watson goes, I think you're looking at a 6th or a 7th. And I mean, that's no offense to the guy, but he is a reserve type player, like you mentioned. He's not someone that's going to be in the lineup every day. He's someone that maybe you want to add a little grit, a little toughness, a little veteran presence to your lineup come playoffs. That's something you can look at. And like, we're not sitting here banging the table being like, we got to get a return for Austin Watson. This is another kind of shoulder shrug, like, I'd rather move him off the roster and get something rather than just let him go in the offseason. That's the gist of most of these players here.
But not the two that I covered up here. If you're watching on YouTube, some elite graphic designing.
Yeah, great job there.
So can I get some credit for the headline too? I'm not one to usually ask for credit, but come on. I mean, TSN's got nothing on me on their Chiron. Selling Senators.
The only thing you could have done, Ross, and I don't know if this would be great or cheesy, is make all those S's dollar signs.
Oh my God, you're an idiot.
That's awesome. That's why you do the graphic designing, I guess, eh?
Yeah, no, that's
I'm just the math and scheduling guy.
That's clever. That's clever. But it almost is disappointing that the Senators, these are all players that they've brought in recent years that we're talking about now. And now we're looking at selling them for what
Peanuts.
Feels like, nickels. Like it just
pennies, even, Ross.
Pennies, man. Some of our listeners have never touched a penny.
Yeah.
But you look at what this team has to give up. There's not a whole lot there, except for the two guys at the top who I really do think will be on the move. Now let's start with number 2. I think number 1 becomes obvious when we get to number 2. So I'm going to pull up the whole list for our YouTube viewers here. Okay. Number 2, Tyler Mott was traded last year for a 4th round pick from Vancouver to New York with the Rangers. Now, where I get curious is Tyler Mott was very solid in the playoffs. Just ask our boy John Chick with Locked On Rangers. Loved him there. I'm wondering if now that he's proven himself in a playoffs, maybe they get a 3rd round pick for him, Pilsy. Could they make? But I think it's either a 3rd or a 4th round pick for him. And he's a guy where, I like what he brings as a 4th line guy. But just like Austin Watson, who already seems to have lost his spot in the lineup, may I add, Austin Watson, a healthy scratch in back-to-back games. Tyler Mott being shipped out would open the window for a Sokolov, for a Yarventi, for a Crookshank. One of these guys where they've been in Belleville a while, like, well, let's see what you got in them. So I think moving Tyler Mott is as much about opening up a roster spot for a younger player as it is giving him an opportunity to go and try to maximize his next contract, showing he can be a playoff performer.
Yeah, I agree. I think Tyler Mott is actually a guy that wouldn't be a reserve player on a contending team. I think he would be a 4th line guy, and he would be a really good 4th line guy. Like if Tyler Mott is on the Ottawa Senators 4th line, I think you're probably pretty happy with the top 9 lines, top 9 guys, sorry. So I think he's been good when he's played. You guys know I like Tyler Mott since they acquired him, once I kind of dove into what he brings as a player. So can he get a 3rd round pick in return? I think that's kind of doubtful because he's going to be viewed as a rental guy here. But 2023 4th, I don't think that's too crazy. And I think that's a move that makes a lot of sense on both sides.
Now, we know he's been dealing with an injury that he missed almost a month with. When was that? Yeah, December 22nd until January 28th. So, a full month. He just returned for the last 2 games against Montreal. But, man, the points dried up, didn't they? He had 7 points in his first 8 games, which we knew was unsustainable. He wasn't going to be a point-per-game guy. Come on. But he also has 2 points in his last 26 games. So
yikes.
The offense certainly is dried up around Tyler Mott, but I still think that what he brings as a defensive specialist does have value. So I'd probably say a 4th round pick for him. Now, Pilsy, let's get to Cam Talbot. This is kind of where we've been working up to. You're of the mind that you don't want to trade Cam Talbot. Why?
Well, here's the thing. I want to set this up a little bit. So he is the Senators' top trade target. Like, I think if anyone has legit value here, it's Cam Talbot, because playoff teams, they learned, especially from the Colorado Avalanche, you can have one of the top teams in the NHL with a handful of generational talent guys on your roster. But if you're starting Andrew Hammond, Michael Hutchinson, and fourth stringer guys in the playoffs, you're going nowhere. You're done. You're cooked. So I think there's going to be a lot of teams that look at Cam Talbot and be like, hey, either he can be a backup type guy or a guy we can have ready if we have injury concerns. Like, look at a team like Pittsburgh, right? Like, they're feeling it with Tristan Jarry having been injured for quite a while. Their second and third string guys just haven't got the job done. So I think there's a lot of value to be had here. Here's the thing. Before Sens fans jump all over me being like, why would you keep Cam Talbot? He's been disappointing, et cetera, et cetera. Yeah, I think you would have liked Cam Talbot to have a better season here, but I spent a lot of time this morning looking at Cap Friendly, trying to figure out how this team's going to move forward, especially if they're going to keep Alex DeBrincat. And you're going to have to sacrifice on goaltending. You're going to have to go with tandem goaltending. This team cannot afford a legit starting goalie, especially when Anton Forsberg's contract is good, but that's kind of a pretty penny to be paying for a backup goalie, which I don't want to classify him as a backup goalie. I think he's a great kind of identified 1B goalie. Like, is in that 1B spot, I think he fits that very nicely for the Sens. So I think you have to go with the tandem. There's not a lot of tandem options out there. Like, you need a goalie that's under $4 million. Cam Talbot's making 3.6 right now. I think if you can bring him back just one year and have this tandem roll again next year. Cam Talbot's had some games where it's been an absolute disaster, and throw those games into his numbers and they really throw his numbers off. I think apart from those blunders, he's been a decently consistent goalie, and I think a tandem of Forsberg and Talbot can get this team closer to the playoffs than has happened this year. This year, a lot of things have happened. I'm not going to use excuses, but the Norris injury is just massive for this team, and things haven't worked out. There's growing pains when you're trying to get out of a rebuild. So I think the best option for the Senators is to try to kick this issue down the road, try to sign Talbot to one more year here, because I think having Talbot return and hopefully you get more out of him next season is more valuable than, let's say, a third round pick is going to do you if you're the Ottawa Senators right now. Because if you trade Talbot, now you got to find a guy that fits under your budget and that you think can perform at that level. So am I sitting here saying Cam Talbot is the answer? Cam Talbot is a 1A goalie and Forsberg 1B. These are the guys that will surely bring the Sens to the promised land of playoffs? No, I'm not saying that. I'm saying that I think this is probably a route they're going to have to go, and they're going to have to hope for the best. They're going to have to outscore a lot of their problems with that high-octane offense that they're paying for up front. So in my mind, keeping Talbot for one more season at a reasonable price is more valuable than trading him for a third-round pick than sitting there being like, well, now we got to find a guy in free agency.
I think that's a fair description of it. My only retort to that is when I look at the list of upcoming NHL free agent goaltenders, if Cam Talbot wasn't already on the Sens, I would have just kept scrolling like I did for a lot of these guys. Like, there's not a whole lot of juice. Like, Freddie Anderson probably has the most
Can't afford him.
Decorated resume. He's at 4.5 right now, but like, he doesn't even interest me. Then you have guys like Tristan Jarry's the top end, but I do believe he's going to re-sign in Pittsburgh. They have so much money coming off.
And he's going to want starting goalie money.
Exactly. He's only making 3.5 right now. But the thing is, like, Cam Talbot, he to me, he's in the same kind of conversation as like even a Varlamov or like, it doesn't get me fired up as a guy who I think can carry the mail. And he's proven this year at times he looks unreal, but at other times he looks like a below replacement level goaltender. So it's tough. Like, you almost wish you could go back to 2021 and make sure Jesper Wallstedt or even Sebastian Cossa, I think more so Wallstedt, the way his development has tracked, but it really feels like the Senators are without a blue chipper in net. And as a goalie friendly show, that sucks. This is once the team that had Anderson, Leonard, and Bishop. We were swimming in great goaltenders. And now it really does seem like a struggle. And Forsberg's turned it around, which is great because he was struggling there for a while. But at 2.75, like you're saying, they're almost already locked in to having a tandem. So if they keep
it's the only way it's going to work. So I think you go, it's like that old saying, you go with the enemy you know. I'm right with you, Ross. I'm not fired up about Cam Talbot. I'm not banging on the table to keep him. but I just think it's the most sensible option since you know what you got from him. Now, the only concern is you're looking at a 36-year-old goalie who's already been out weeks at a time twice this season, and then you're relying on Forsberg to be a 1A guy, which I don't think is ideal. And I haven't given up on Matt Sogard yet. I think there's still a lot of time, and for a goalie with his size that's able to move the way he is, I've still got faith in him, but he's not ready yet. This team cannot go forward next year with Forsberg and Sogard. They can't do it, and I believe they won't do it. So I think you kick this can down the road one more year. You hope Matt Sogard has a great year in development in Belleville, and then maybe he's able to carve out some sort of NHL role down the future. I'm just spitballing here. Like, I don't want people to think that this is my bold, highlighted opinion and that I'm standing by this. I was just taking a look at Cap Friendly, and the conclusion I came to is this team is going to have to get lucky with tandem goaltending. And I think Cam Talbot, a guy you already know, and a guy who might like living in Ottawa, and he's got a young family as well, or at least a younger family, he might be more enticed to take a discount to stay where he is rather than move again. It's a guy that's moved a lot in his career. So I think it could be something that works in a one-year plan, because if the Senators were in a position where they felt they were playoff ready this year, then I think you try to work things around to get a bona fide starter, but they're not at that point where they can push those chips into the table yet.
Yeah, that's fair. How about if I approach it this way? You know what? I'm going to wait for it. We'll do that right on the other side. You are listening to Locked On Senators.
This episode is brought to you by our friends over at Built Bar. It's the protein bar that tastes like a candy bar, guys. I wasn't really that into protein bars until I discovered Built Bar. And that's not even just me saying that as an ad. I love Built Bar because they focus on making it taste great first, so that when you're reaching for a protein bar, you're not like, I don't really want this, but it's good for me, I'll eat it. No, that's not how I feel at all. Ross, I crave Built Bars sometimes. I'm like, oh man, I want something that's covered in chocolate and has so many delicious flavors, and that's the Built Bar way. All of their bars are covered in 100% chocolate, and the best example of them making it taste great and then making it healthy is the Built Puffs. Ross, we love the Built Puffs because, like I mentioned, covered in chocolate, and then it's got marshmallow in them. You're thinking, marshmallow and chocolate? As far as I know, that's not healthy. Have you heard of protein-infused marshmallow, though? Oh, boy. They got so many great flavors. You're looking at churro, brownie, butter, anything with coconut gets my cosign on it right away. I love Built Bar, but don't just take my word for it. Check it out yourself. Get a mix box at built.com. And for your first order, you can use promo code LOCKEDON15 for 15% off. You got to check it out, guys. One more time, built.com, promo code LOCKEDON15 for 15% off your next order. It's Built Bar, the protein bar that tastes like a candy bar.
All right, Pilsy, we've made it. We've made it. We've made it.
You did it?
There
Look at
is
us.
a bot account who's trying to do the jersey giveaway for us. We got scammers. We got scammers. Please block and report SendCentral _ on Twitter.
Oh.
Trying to DM people, trying to get people to click the link. You know what the giveaway was? No pun intended, but the giveaway that this is a scam. They sent like 8 paragraphs. I would have just said, "You win. What's your address? Let's make this happen."
Yeah, that's true. That is an easy giveaway. Yeah.
At SendCentral.
No underscore.
No underscore. But let's get back to that Cam Talbot conversation quickly, because I want to approach it this way. Okay. We put down the value in draft picks for everybody. Now, I agree with you. I'm not in the mind of just selling them off for a draft pick, but we've heard LA's interested. If you can get an NHL defenseman with some upside in it, then is that a move that you look for and reassess the goaltending in the summer?
Yeah, that's something I'm much more enticed to do, for sure. Like if you're looking at a Matt Roy or Sean Walker, not Sean Dursey, Ross, sorry.
Damn it.
But that's something that you're looking into a little bit more, because that's going to help you in the future. Because look, us saying trade these players away for picks is not because we're trying to be pick hoarders and we're trying to get all draft picks. We've been there. We've done that, Ross. We've been pick hoarders for a while. And as a Sens fan, I'm not that interested in it. It's mostly just shipping out roster spots. But if you can find defensemen with some term, like those guys that are affordable, that can fit into your system, yeah, that's something I look at. And then, like we said, neither of us are crazy for Cam Talbot. So if you have to trade him and try to find a guy similar to him at a similar price point in the offseason, sure, go for it.
Okay. How many trades do you think the Senators will make before the deadline?
3.
Do you want to call your shots?
No. I'll say 3 of those 5 guys, and honorable mention would be a Dylan Gambrell. Again, this is a guy that does not move the needle much. You're getting a 6th or 7th round pick, and he's going to be a reserve player on a contending team. But I think they make 3 deals because you got to do something. I think it'd be silly just to let those assets walk. Again, not that the enticement of a 6th or 7th round pick is something you can't afford to lose, but you might as well go for it, especially if you believe in the drafting process here.
Let us know in the comments what you think the Ottawa Senators should do ahead of the trade deadline. Maybe when we get closer to it, we will pick out some players that could be a fit in Ottawa. Billsy already mentioned Sean Walker and Matt Roy as potential examples from the LA Kings. But with trades now between the deadline and when we're talking to you here on February 9th in the early morning in Central Time, or about noon, let's say, Eastern Time, we're not going to let that age. Whereas this one, I think it's more digestible leading up to the deadline. These are the types of players that the Ottawa Senators, I think, are going to move on from. Hey, if you have a blockbuster in mind, put it in the comments as well. We want to see you get absolutely wild. I want the comment section to be a bloodbath of wild trade rumors. But
I wasn't ready to go crazy, Ross. This is a very tempered, like the Talbot discussion was the juiciest for us. I wasn't ready to really get wild here and look at moving guys with 6, 7, 8 year deals. So we'll save that for more desperate times.
Well, how about Anson Carter's trade? Did you see his rumored trade on Sportsnet last week?
I think I did see it. It was what? Ridley Gregg, Mad Sogard, Zach Ostapchuk, and one more guy. Who was the other guy? Tyler Clevin for Vejmelka and Chychrun. I mean,
and a pick.
The thing with trade proposals is, no offense, like myself included in this, we're usually so far off. Like if you look at any superstars being traded, most of the time, most trade proposals don't even include one player correctly in the deal. Like think about the Carlson trade from Ottawa to San Jose. Ross, we didn't even talk or think about a single guy that got moved in return. None of those guys were even on our discussion topics. So I think like doing stuff like that is just kind of it's more filler than anything. That's why we went with just using draft picks as currency value rather than try to get Galaxy Brain with this.
100%. I agree with you there, and let's see where the fans want the Sens to go at the deadline. Speaking of fans, we can't thank everybody enough for making us your first listen each and every day. We appreciate you guys, and to show our appreciation, not only do we want to do things like live shows like we're doing next Friday. Get your tickets now. $15 live show, to the game, from the game.
It's insane value, honestly. Like I'm not even just saying that. Like even just the savings on an Uber from Glebe to the arena and back alone are very nice.
Especially with the vibe that we're going to create
in the vibes.
The party bus is going to be absolutely grooving. It's going to be a great time. Cannot wait for that. We're also picking up a ton of merch, Billsy. We're going to give away a couple, I think, at the GLEBE Central Pub. We got a couple sizes and a couple different designs on there as well. Shout out to @Sensual Healing. Graham, our boy who designed those. It's a huge move there. And I believe Doodling Daryl will be there with a Zoob t-shirt to give away. So nice. Lots of reasons to come by the GLEBE Central Pub on February 17th. But we also want to show some appreciation for reaching 10,000 on Twitter. Now, we had some people make note in the comments on YouTube. Fair comment. Why are you always doing your giveaways on Twitter? What about the YouTube people? I don't know how to do a YouTube picker like I do for Twitter. Like, look, the website, we're pulling up. I know you're watching because it's a YouTube comment. I can just go to website, I can put the tweet in and put must follow, and all of a sudden, and no, I don't care if you have a picture. Do we care? Do you have to have a profile picture?
Ooh, that might sort out bots, but I don't want to be unfair to people.
I don't think we had that many.
The only thing I'll say to that comment, Ross, is the purpose of this giveaway was to get to 10,000 followers on Twitter. So,
Right.
I mean, it makes sense to do it on Twitter. We're trying to bump up the Twitter numbers. So,
100%.
yeah.
So let me see no picture. That means that we have 779 entries. But now, I have to do this all over again. This is tough. Sens Central, Ross Levitan, Brandon Piller 1. Make sure you're following him. Not the Brandon Piller,
No.
but one of the Brandon Pillars on
The
on
first one.
the first. Are you the first one though?
No, I guess not if that other Brandon Piller guy swiped the name before me.
Yes, he did. All right,
Yeah.
now
He's
that
not
I've got-
verified, though.
Now that I've got this back here, let's say must have a picture. Boom. 785.
Oh,
Isn't that more? Anyways, let's do it
we're
this
not
way.
math guys.
There's 785 people in it. We appreciate each and every one of you for making us first listen. And now, as you can see, look at
I'm
that.
excited for this. This is a big draw. And like Ross said, thank you guys so much. You guys really, this was a massive, massive success for both people following us on Twitter. And this is a pretty kick-ass prize, if you ask me. A custom. We could have just been you get a Brady black jersey. Here you go. No, you get to pick the jersey and customize it. We're not kidding around here.
Not kidding around at all. So, without further discussion,
Here we go. Woo!
Wait, why don't we get a little background music going?
Nice. And this is for all the people that stuck around to the end of the show.
Appreciate it. Let's go. Begin draw.
Uh-oh.
Wait, we got controversy here.
Oh no, contention right away.
The profile picture is missing. So, if Hannah's the winner, then I think it has to go to Hannah, don't you? If it's a bot.
We set the stipulation as they need a profile picture, because then I feel like that's not fair for our guy, Ryan Boyce.
I know.
He's got the green number beside him. I say we go with Ryan here.
Hannah 036. Let me see here. This looks like a real person, though. This doesn't look like a bot.
Oh, no.
This is tough. I don't know. We put it in profile picture. I almost feel like we have to go with that. But then maybe we get something for Hannah too. Maybe I'll reach out to Hannah. We'll get her hooked up. But I think the jersey has to go to Ryan based on the stipulations that we put in, right?
Yes.
Oh my God. We said this would be a contentious episode. I didn't think it would be in this way. Maybe we should have done the giveaway on YouTube. We wouldn't have had to deal with this.
Yeah, true. Yeah, that's blowing up in our face now. I don't know. Ross, my goldfish bird brain is seeing a green font beside Ryan's name, and that's the winner for me.
Okay. But I do think we should reach out to Hannah and make sure that if she is a real person.
Yeah, we got to send her one of those charts with the traffic lights, and she has to hit all the boxes that have a traffic light in there.
Yeah, her profile says she's from Brantford, Ontario. So I don't know. I'll DM Hannah. We'll get her sorted out. But Ryan Boys,
yes,
you are the winner.
Yes.
You got the green, you're accepted. You got the green beside you here on the Twitter giveaway picker. Here we go. Sens jersey, your choice, Ryan. We appreciate you for making us your first listen each and every day. We'll reach out to you, get your digits, and I promise you'll be able to tell that I am not a spam trying to get your information, because we don't need you to click a link. Don't click a link if you get sent by what looks like our account. There's a spam out there that's trying to ruin our giveaway. They won't do that, nor will the Twitter picker.
Yeah.
We're trying to.
We can't let the bots win, Ross. As humans, we got to fight back. We got to stick together. We can't have bots beating us here. I will not give a custom Tim Stützle reverse retro jersey to a bot. I won't do it. I want the humans to get this one.
If they want a Tim Stützle reverse retro. We're going to talk to Ryan. We'll get him all sorted out, whether he wants a white, black, reverse retro, which name he wants on the back. It's all thanks to you guys for following us on Twitter at Sens Central and making us a part of your daily routine. Can't thank you enough. We'll be back tomorrow with Stephen Halliday. For those yesterday who might have been like, hey, I thought we were getting Stephen today. Stephen was all-time great dude, very relaxed, very, very comfortable, I think.
Definitely. I think with being in college, maybe he's been around a little bit more media and he's had to do a little bit more of those things. But it was a really fun interview. And you guys are going to love hearing the disher, not a disher discussion. It's hilarious. I mean, this is something that continuously blows up in my face and I'm here for it.
It's awesome. And he even said he was laughing at it too. So it's all good, all good. Stay tuned for that tomorrow. And then we will be back tomorrow, and then we finally get a postcast, Saturday postcast. I'm so fired up for that. Sens and Oilers. The Sens return after a way too long time off. Now, the Sens do practice tonight, 6 p.m., which I think is a NHLPA thing, like the bye week ends at 5 p.m. the day before, whatever it is. Sens are on the ice at practice, 6 o'clock. We'll have updates for you on Twitter at Sens Central. But for today, we say goodbye. For Brandon Piller, I'm Ross Levitan. This has been the Locked On Senators podcast, your team every day.